Today it'll be just myself on the stream. And what we've done so far in this short series is, let me share my desktop. We have looked at how to get a Redis database in the cloud yesterday. And what we did there was we set up a Redis database in the Redis cloud, which is in fact implemented as AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. So you get to choose where you put your, or where we put and host your Redis database for you. And the reason why that's important is you want that database near to where your code is going to be running to minimize the latency between the code and Redis, because Redis is all about speed. So what we're looking at here is the Redis DEVcember page. It's at developer.redis.com/DEVcember. And what we've got here is an overview of what we're going to be doing, and then the schedule. So you'll see each day we announce a new topic and a new time. We're going to be mixing those times up to allow people in different time zones to watch these live. And that means you won't always be able to watch them live. But that's okay, because we're also streaming these live to YouTube. And then when we're done, we'll update this page. So here we can see yesterday's YouTube video is available for us to watch it on demand. And those will be here throughout the entire month. So you can expect to meet other members of our team. So there's myself, Suze Shardlow, our developer community manager, who was on stream with me yesterday. And starting tomorrow, Justin Castilla, a developer advocate, who you may have seen in some of our explainer videos and some of our Redis University courses. So to very quickly recap what we did yesterday, over here, I'm at redis.com, and we have this big try free button over here. So what we did yesterday was we hit the try free button, we filled out a small registration form, created an account, and we created a subscription to Redis in the cloud. That subscription was free, and it gave us a 30 megabyte database that we created. So if I log in here, what I'm going to be able to do is log in as the right account, streaming, and give it the password. Here we go. And what we can see is I created a database called DEVcember 2021 Redis. And that's a cloud database. It's hosted and managed by Redis. It happens to live on AWS. It's in US East 1 because that was where I chose to put it. So I might be running my code there, or I might live in proximity to that region. And what we then needed to go ahead and do was actually connect something to the database so we can see what's in there and manipulate data in it. So what we're going to look at today over the course of the next 10 minutes is a product called RedisInsight. So what's RedisInsight? It is a graphical tool that allows us to visualize data in a Redis instance and work with it. So we can do normal CRUD operations. We can create, remove, update, delete. Well, I can't even remember what CRUD stands for, but the 4 things that CRUD stands for, we can do all of those over a variety of data types in Redis. And it presents as a sort of workbench interface. For the first time in a Redis education sort of video output today, we're going to look at version 2 of RedisInsight. If you've used this before, version 1 presented as a web application. So you ran it, it ran like a local web server on your machine, and you connected to a URL, and you got a web-based interface in the browser. Version 2 is more like a native application. So you download it, you install it. In this case, I'm using a Macintosh, but it's available for other operating systems. And then it'll run like any other application on your machine. And what we're going to see today is how to connect it to the Redis in the cloud and how to use it a little bit. And then we'll build on that for further streams in this series. So I've downloaded RedisInsight already. If you want to go ahead and get your own copy, hit the big blue download button here. And that will give you, in the case of a Macintosh, a standard DMG installer, and you just install the application. So once you've got that done, it will appear in your dock. And here it is. It's called RedisInsight Preview because version 2 is still in preview, but it's available for the public now. And we can connect it up to different Redis databases. So I have my local Redis here on my machine connected. We want to connect to that cloud instance that I created. So I'm going to hit Add Redis Database here. I'm going to do add database manually, and I'm going to give it some credentials and a host and port that it needs. So here we have the host name and the port, and I can give it an alias or a name, and a username if I'm using Redis 6 ACL users, or in this case, I'm just using the default Redis user that you would provide with a require pass directive in previous versions of Redis. So let's go back to Redis Cloud here. So I have this public endpoint. That is a host name and a port. So I can just hit copy here. I can go back to Insight, and let's do some pasting in there. So it's figured out my host. It's parsed out the port from there. And we'll call this one DEVcember 2021. And then I'm going to need a password. So when this was created, it set me up with a password, and that should be down here. I'm going to copy that. I'm not going to show it for fairly obvious reasons. And I'm going to paste it into the password box. Then hopefully when we hit add Redis database, we now have a second database in the list. So we have DEVcember 2021 here. I can click on this, and we can start exploring what's in that database. And you'll see up at the top there, it says calculating. It's off figuring out some metrics about the database. So how big it is, how many keys it's got, and all that stuff. This is actually a completely empty database because we created it yesterday, didn't do anything with it. So there's nothing in here. Within the scope of a 10-minute stream, we can't really cover the full scope of what we could do here with Redis, but it's a key value database. So everything is stored by keys as opposed to, say, tables if you're working with a relational database such as Postgres. And the thing that we associate with a key, which is a unique primary key name, is a value. And in Redis, those values have different types. So when I go here and I hit add key, I get a dialog to help me do that. And I can pick one of the supported types. So we have a hash here selected, which is kind of Redis's model of a flat object. So a key users :Simon, if we set it to a hash, might map to a set of name value pairs for things like name, Simon Prickett, city, Nottingham, phone number, my phone number, email, my email, etc. We have a set. So that models a mathematical set. So it might be things like license plates of vehicles that have driven past a camera today. And if a vehicle drives past multiple times, the way a set works, as in mathematics, is those multiple instances will be deduplicated. So we would have one instance of each license plate. So sets can be useful for all sorts of things, sort of like faceting, group membership, counting unique things. We have probably the most common data type that people have worked with in Redis. Redis is often used as a cache. And what you put in the key value is a string containing the result of some API call or some other slower database call that you want to cache. So that might be a JSON document that you serialize in there. It might be an XML document. It might be a binary blob. Strings are binary safe. You can put images in there. And yeah, that's strings. We also have a list. So a list is something that Justin will be looking at with you in tomorrow's session. And it models a doubly linked list from computer science data structures. So we can store things, they have a defined order, and we can say to it, get the next thing off the list and atomically pop that off. So it's good for managing things like a work queue, for example. There are other types in Redis. So JSON's one of those. We can put a JSON document in. That is available through a module called Redis JSON that we added when we created the database yesterday. So really quickly, let's do some really basic stuff. So I'm going to put a string in here, and I'm going to call it my name, and I'm going to give it a value of Simon. Keys in Redis, no matter what their type, have this thing called TTL, or time to live. So by default, Redis will not set a time to live on a key. What that means is that it will stick around in the database forever, which is usually what you want. You put things in a database to be durable, persistent, all of those good things. Sometimes, though, you want to use the database as a cache, or for other reasons, you might want to remember things for a certain amount of time and then forget they ever happened. So like if I was a transit system and I had like a 2-hour pass ticket, the first time that ticket is swiped, I might want to store those details in the database and then have a time to live of 2 hours, and that ticket's valid for 2 hours, and then the database will automatically delete it. So if I set this to like 20 seconds, hit add key, and then we hit OK, what we will see is that I now have this string key called my name, and it has the value Simon, and it has a TTL here that's counting down. So it's 12 seconds right now, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 0. And now we get an error. Why do we get an error? Because the TTL for that key ran out, doesn't exist anymore. So Redis has marked that as deleted, and our Simon value has now gone because I set that TTL on it. So if I hit refresh here, I should be back to a blank database. That's a very simple example of working with a single key. We can have more complicated keys with more complicated values. So if I had a hash here and I use something like user:\Simon, and the colon notation here is kind of a convention. Redis doesn't enforce any sort of key space conventions, but we recommend that because these are primary keys and they're across the whole database, because there's no tables here, it's just a key space, that you segment things using delimiters. So user:\Simon might be the equivalent of having a user folder with a user called Simon in it. And if we know that we need the user Simon, we just form that key name up in our code somewhere. So here for a hash, I can then add fields and values. So I might have my name here and put my name in, Simon Prickett, and I might put in something like city, and I am from Nottingham, England. And we might put something like citizenship, and I might put British. And we might have something like favorite color, and that might be green. And then when I add the key, what we've done is I now have over here on the left in the browser a single key which contains multiple like sub-key value names, and that's how hashes work. They're like a flat map object. So RedisInsight here is great for sort of playing with things and looking at what's in the database. It also gives us this CLI workpad. So if you're more familiar with the older Redis CLI interface where you type commands, I could do things like, for example, hget all, which is the hash command to get everything, and I get some assistance here. I now want a key, so we called it user Simon. So if I then press play, it runs the Redis hgetAll user Simon command, and I can use this interface to like scratch pad out Redis commands that I maybe want to put in an application and run through a Redis client, which is a piece of SDK software that we'll look at later in the month. So this interface is fantastic for exploring Redis. It's excellent for debugging what's going on. I can look at my memory usage. I can see how many commands a second my Redis is processing. I can see how full it is and how much CPU it's using. And we can do more analysis on that. We also have support for Redis modules. So when we created this database, we installed JSON and Search, and we'll be able to work with those. They have interfaces. And you can also use this version 2 of RedisInsight to learn about Redis. So if you wanted to follow a workbook here for like, how do we, thank you very much, it's create, read, update, and delete. I should know that. If you want to use this guided workbook here, for example, to learn how to work with JSON documents, here we can see how to add some school data. And JSON allows us to store not only name values like we saw in the flat hash, but nested documents, so anything that can go in a JSON document. And then we can see how to use a JSON path expression to read those back again. So I highly recommend that you try version 2 of RedisInsight. Even if you've got version 1, you can install them next to each other. I currently have both installed down here, and they don't interfere with each other. And if you're looking to learn some Redis, then come on over to the Workbench view here and try it out. So that was very quickly kind of today's content. So what we looked at was how easy it is to get that cloud database that we've got and set up RedisInsight and work with it. And one of the things you can do once you've got these things set up is you can take a course at Redis University. One of our most popular courses, RU 101, here, can be done entirely in the cloud, and you can use RedisInsight. This course has a sample data set around an Olympic Games type event, and you learn how to use all the different Redis data types, and you have questions and exercises to do around running commands against Redis to get values out of the database or manipulate values in there. So it might be like, how many seats have been sold for the judo event on this day in this ticket tier would be, one of those. So RU 101 is a fun course to do. It's a great introduction to Redis, and we can give you a lot of help there. So we run a Discord where you can come talk to us about the courses or anything Redis. I would strongly recommend that you sign up for that. I don't have it running at the minute. I can start it. And you can come talk to us about anything in here, including DEVcember. So what we've got here is channels per Redis module, for example. So here, some folks are talking to some of our staff about Redis Gears, which is a module for running Python in Redis. But we also have support for each of the Redis University courses. So RU 101 has a channel. The course is free and it's mostly video based. So I highly recommend that you take that. And then what we're going to do here on DEVcember tomorrow is we're going to spend another 15 minutes later in the day with our colleague Justin Castilla. Justin's based in the Bay Area, so he's US Pacific time. So we'll be moving towards later in the day. We'll put today's stream right here on the schedule page, and we'll set up a line for tomorrow's, and we'd love to see you then. So I'm just going to stop sharing my desktop now. So yeah, thanks for coming along today. These are intended to be very short, bite-sized chunks to introduce the topic. Then you can come back to the DEVcember page and learn more about it. As we're building up to the weekend, we'll have some fun exercises for you to try, and you won't need any coding experience to do those. We'll be doing those with RedisInsight, a cloud database, and doing some fun exercises with the Redis list data type, which Justin's going to introduce tomorrow. So that's it for today. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, and have a great day. Thank you very much.